So by now, you should know my take on design leadership. What does it take to be a good and effective design leader? What does it take to actually be prepared for those challenges? You're gonna need to expose yourself to all the different inputs out there, all the different strategy books. And this is gonna be about that, because just a year or so ago, I reviewed a handful of books and I asked, hey, let me know if you want me to create more. And that's why we're doing this. I'm gonna review 10, just 10. I hope this time it's not gonna be more than that. And I'm gonna give you my thoughts of what I got out of it and how did I apply to my development into design leadership. But let's start with one which I immediately can see, and this is a must-read for managers and leaders alike. Anyone who's actually engaging and working in a team setting. It's written as a fiction ultimately. It's retelling a lot of those anecdotes, a recipe of what you need to look out for as a leader to improve things. Ultimately, the 5 dysfunctions is lack of trust, fear of conflict, lack of commitment, which is shared or individual, lack of accountability, and lack of results. It almost like builds up like a pyramid on top of each other. And you as a leader, let's say, if you know specifically what do you need to address, you can kind of go one by one improving these steps. But on a very strategic level, this gives you that recipe to actually address it. And so in this next one, as you can see, I kind of marked a few different bits because it's that powerful. Bold is really that, because as a leader, you need to be bold, especially when it comes to innovation, finding the right signals, converging on them. You're actually looking outwards and ahead, not getting stuck on this, let's say, slow point of enlightenment because you achieve some things and then kind of plateau in that productivity realm where you just maintain things. This is all about going big and bigger than yourself, bigger than, let's say, UI terms, in terms of business, community, ecosystem, regional things and global things. What exactly are you doing and to what capacity? And this is kind of like an eye-opener. As a designer, let's say, you might think that creating an app for saving world hunger because it distributes some food, or let's say makes it as accessible as that. But in reality, there's many more factors which you need to figure out, which is services, a lot of different products, logistics, supply chains, stuff like that. It's that thing, but you kind of need to open your mind and think of it in very broad terms and holistically before you just pick this one app and go for it. Now the next one, or actually a couple of books, and you can see this is a bit worn down. There is yellowed pages, but this is why it's so important. It's Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's a big one to unpack, but Meditations was written thousands of years ago as part of Roman emperors, I guess, daily activities where he would just write reflections of the things. But the issues he faced at those points, in a way simpler times than we face today, but also maybe complex in a way because of, lack of technology. So it depends how you skin it. But the issues on a human level were exactly the same. Like if you would just read this, you would be like, oh, this is actually my life every day. Now, how you actually apply it and why it's so powerful is because it gives you, I guess, a recipe of what's in your control and what's not in your control, so that you can act on the things you can actually influence and forget the rest. Leaders, doesn't matter where we are, must reflect on these type of things. And that's why it's so important. Like, I feel like Stoicism for me now is a way of living because I don't think about things I can't control, or I don't care about them that much. If you look about all the different UX, let's say, issues UX research or designers face every day, most of them are not something we can even influence because there's other people who might come from their egos and things of that nature. If you reflect on that, if you sort of meditate on it, you can then act on things you can influence because you are focusing on the right things instead of everything, and you're not sure what actually you can influence or what you cannot. I said I'm gonna cover only 10, but I can't help it. I think this is even better. A lot of people, I understand, don't really like that short format, or let's say small snippets. Others do, but this is more of like essay format of very similar stuff because it's still the same stoicism driven decision making, day-to-day reflections, ultimately meditation. And the next book is one of those books, like last time I kind of covered 48 Laws of Power, but this time it's Niccolo Machiavelli's of Prince. And Machiavellian as a, I guess, adjective, as a terminology used for deceit and politicism and kind of like that coldness, manipulative behavior comes from this. That doesn't mean that it's a bad book. I feel like it's been misunderstood, and there's actually a book called Machiavelli Misunderstood. But it's because it's written in such a cold manner and reflecting of the harsh realities and what you could do to actually influence in, let's say, war scenarios. And again, then you can deconstruct and act on it to reflect exactly where are you at, because you're going to face your challenges, your battles, your wars basically in day-to-day scenarios, maybe at a smaller scale and scope. This would literally cover it, albeit the language of the design organizations and design teams and things of that nature, but it's one of the classic reads which I think everybody needs to read, because then you understand who you're dealing with. Because some people are going to approach this from the wrong side or negative side. If you are approaching it from doing better and improving life and actually being, then you actually can overcome it, or actually just reflect who's using what technique and then challenge them, because you know exactly where they are coming from. Now, the next one is a book which I quoted in so many videos and in live streams, but it's Bill Walsh's The Score Takes Care of Itself. Could spend literally, a day talking about why it's so powerful. Ultimately, the title says it all. If you focus on the right things and you foster your team, foster the environment and low ego environment at that, where everybody, doesn't matter where we come from, where diverse backgrounds, skill sets, minds, and abilities would come together. At points you're gonna get a lot of different people to, let's say, to lead and manage, who are gonna be, again, from different abilities or different focuses or different experiences. This would act like a guidebook of how you could, in a sense, drive the sports team in design, or design team through sports mindset, where everybody focuses on one single goal instead of trying to pull it apart or trying to add biases which are not needed to make better decisions. 33 Strategies of War by Robert Greene, the same author as 48 Laws of Power. Both books, maybe this one is less so, but both books kind of split the people, and a lot of people were kind of opposed to it and triggered. But it doesn't matter. It's like you need to be open-minded and have growth mindset. It's about offense, defense, all the different bits you would encounter as a leader in design world or any other world. The actual principles are very simple. Lose battles but win the war. Or, for example, know your enemy, or create a threatening presence. And all of those tactics and strategic principles are illustrated with historic anecdotes and specific cases in the history, from, let's say, Napoleon to the modern times. Everyone faces those battles, internal, external, doesn't matter to what scope. Cool. And the next one is Seth Godin's Linchpin. This book is more about, I guess, career progression, but how I apply it to my leadership roles before and now is really thinking that you are not just there to solve small problems within business, but you're there to solve problems and mass holistically and connect the dots. For example, a principle in UX which we must always employ is that UX is a team sport, and that is a shared collaborative effort where you connect business with technology, with the user side, and you arrive at something truly good for the users because everything is covered. In the leadership roles, you're also going to need to look outwards a lot, and probably a lot more than you think. You're going to need to look at the challenges en masse and almost like approach things at a service level, because it's not just going to be about the small app or the small interaction which you need to fix or a product to shape. It's going to be like, how does that connect with all the other parts of the business? Doesn't matter how big it is. Maybe it's different departments, maybe it's different business leaders. You kind of need to connect so that that specific thing you're looking at is actually a success. And that, as a knock-on effect, then makes you a linchpin, because people know who to go to if they have the challenge of, let's say, UX things or research things. And almost business then starts to rely on you to cover that. You almost become that indispensable. And the next one is by Simon Sinek. Leaders eat last. In a way where you as a leader, as a design leader, need to think about your team more so than you think about yourself. Meaning daily decisions, strategic decisions, tactical decisions. You need to favor your team because you rely on them so much to deliver those results. The Score Takes Care of Itself book was foreshadowing to this, because it's that important. As a leader, you rely on your people so much that you need to care about them more than you care about you. Anything they need, is going to be your challenge to make happen. Of course, you're not going to be able to do it all. You're going to need to prioritize. But on a priority list between you and your team is always going to have to come first. It could be a simple and quite specific example of that could be, let's say, when it comes to promotions. As a leader, as a manager, you might have some exposure to budgets for the team, let's say. Or at some point you will, if you develop in your career. You are going to be the one who is going to be informing the bonuses or, salary increases, things of that nature. If you know the whole pot and you have so many people and you have yourself, how are you going to distribute that? A bad leader, bad manager is going to favor themselves. A good leader is going to eat last. They're going to be very fair, and of course fairness is almost impossible to make happen because it's never that easy. It's a very difficult thing to do, but it's favoring in that way, and it kind of permeates in a lot of different decisions you would do day to day as well. It's just that simple. You cannot lead if you're not going to put something on a line, if you're not going to have enough skin in the game to almost put personal need aside and figure out what your team needs so that you can all succeed. Okay, so the next one is the HBR's 10 must-reads on emotional intelligence, and you probably know already that emotional intelligence is #1 attributes for any leader or manager to have. And that's why, let's say, some people do much better at managing or leading other people than others, because they just can relate to people more, they can empathize, they can almost UX the relationship and UX that exchange and work together. They can apply, much better solutions, much better methods to understand, but also kind of help people out basically, so they feel heard and they feel supported. But this book, and actually anything from HBR, is pretty good because it's a summary of 10 best articles, I would say, on emotional intelligence. And each of the articles could have been its own book if it isn't already, but it's all about what takes a leader, emotional agility, the feedback giving, resilience building. And my favorite 2 sections or 2 articles in this book is about fairness and exactly how hard it is to be fair as a leader, because you have to objectively but also subjectively overlap different factors, inputs, outcomes, project into the future, be strategic, and make better decisions. It's you're always going to be boxed in, and that's why you're needed there to make those decisions and kind of, eat last from the other book, but also position yourself so you can sponge a lot of that damage, but also allow your team to contribute better. As you can see, it all kind of circles back into all the different other inputs from other books. And now the next one is from my Kindle, but it's What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And it's a powerful book because I guess it's a bit more relevant for more experienced leaders or people who've been, I guess, in these forums where you work with more so with other leaders than, let's say, just yourself. For example, myself, in the past few years, I worked in massive design teams. So let's say I at points managed up to 20 people. And I would find myself in 10 to 14 meetings a day talking to, let's say, heads of product, a lot of different engineering heads, but ultimately leaders coming together to work out some things or set direction or strategic efforts so that your team, on the other hand, or your teams actually perform well. And as someone who looked at this, all the different issues and how to work best with other people at whatever level you would look at it, I like this book a lot because it gives you 20 specific habits to stop doing, which you basically can fix immediately if you just note those down and say, okay, from today, I'm not going to do those. That immediately going to make you a better leader. When I discovered this book, I didn't even read it before I started applying. I didn't even know what the book was about, but it said, what got you here won't get you there. It was almost like a principle statement which had nothing to do with the content of the book. And why it was so powerful, because it kind of reflected on my own journey and my own career and growth. And I realized that even if, let's say, you now become a senior or tomorrow a lead, let's say, or a head of, it's if you want to climb the ladder of sorts, you need to always learn and always employ new methods and strategies. You cannot do the same things and expect different results. And that's how I started looking at it years ago, years before I even picked up and read the book. So I hope this is useful. Make sure to check the other video, by the way. If you have any questions or you want a part 3, do let me know down below, because I can bring, there's a lot more books helped me shape and develop into design leadership roles. So just do let me know.